If there is no conclusion, both have to appoint independent advisor. If there is no conclusion, there is someone who can decide. But the decision never happened. Human capital strengthens the link between business and academic institution. I'm in university business. I realized that university is very good in teaching theory, but we are very bad in teaching soft skill. That's why there is a gap between the demand of the business and the supply from the university. Internship is a reality in Indonesia, in the US, everybody do internship. I think we need to adopt that culture in Indonesia. Encourage vocational study and so on and so forth. Promote access to education for all and so on and so forth. I think that's the last slide. I would like to end my presentation by reading. I read something very simple before I come to the stage. In my view, FDI is like a wild horse in the ancient time. Like a wild horse. If we could manage it well, we can take a huge advantage. But if not, the horse could kick us and hurt us. The history tells us that horse played important role, and it is became the bedrock of civilization advancement. And now the wild horse is FDI. If our civilization would like to advance further, then we need FDI. FDI will play similar role today and in the future. With that, I end my presentation. Again, thank you very much for the attention.
Thank you, Pak Wija. We do have a few minutes for Q&A before Ambassador Jalal closes us out. But Tom, if I could ask you to come up on the stage. There's one question I want to ask if no one else has asked of you before we open it up. So Tom, let's start with you. The $1 million. Oh yeah, we'll give you a microphone. The $1 million question then is, what's happening in the U.S.? What can we expect in the next day, month?
Well, I don't know. That's why I'm here. No, I mean, I think it's a very good question. First, a couple of facts. This is an argument about what we're going to do in our annual budget. And it doesn't have anything to do with the numbers. It's all about politics. And it's about politics that are leading up to the 2014 and 2016 election, and everybody's trying to position themselves. It's more complicated because there is some division within the Republican Party, but it's a division over some sensible arguments on which way we're going to go and how we're going to fix our problem. Point number two, the United States has closed part of its government 17 times in the last 30 years, and nobody noticed. Most of the time it was for a few days. Once it went 20 days. Point number three. I believe this will take a little longer time, not more than the outside 20, unless the pressure builds up and folks make a deal. Because about November the 17th, we're going to have to deal with our debt. And that is to up the debt level that is approved by the Congress of the United States for the Treasury to buy or to acquire bonds, to sell bonds and other instruments to fund our government and our deficits. So what normally would happen in a couple of days, we'd have all the screaming and hollering and carrying on in the press and the political. And by the way, this is wholesome, you understand. A lot of people think, even in the United States, they laugh. It is the definition, the articulation of a free and open political process where people are not forced to move on issues that they think are inappropriate unless they can marshal enough votes in the necessary places to move it forward. It's it's a republic, but it's a democratic process. I do think that this could stretch out till we deal with the debt issue and the spending issue, and I'll leave you with one last thought. All of these arguments, all of these discussions, leave out of the consideration the elephant in the room. The elephant in our room are entitlements. The payments for health care, for Medicare, and Medicaid, and for Social Security. We are an aging population. By the way, I vote for that. But we're an aging population, and we can fix this, but we can't keep putting it off, and everybody wants to put it off. It's part of the political process. Here's what I do. I watch this. I understand it's not going the way we'd like it to go. It will go there, but nobody should make a mistake that this, even if it's ugly as it's going to be, that it is going to force America to a position other than where we wish to be, because as Winston Churchill said, after we try everything else that usually doesn't work, we come to something that does. Thank you very much.
We have time for only a few questions from the audience. So what I would ask is, we have microphones around the room. If you would raise your hand, I'll call on you. If you wait for the microphone, and if you could state your name and your affiliation, and if I could ask you to keep the question brief. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Johannes Sansikolan from South Sumatra government. I am the chairman of Regional Development Planning Board of the province. In fact, I am aware that most of smart people in the grassroots, not in the national level, say that actually Indonesia does not belong to Indonesia anymore. When we look at the sky, we look at Airbus, Boeing, Fokker. When we look at the land, we look at the Far East capital like Toyota, Suzuki, Hyundai, whatsoever. And we look at the forest, agriculture. We look at the same, look like Indonesia, but actually they are Malaysia, Singapore, or else. And if we look at the mining, we look at Western, either United States, Canada, Europe. So the question is, where is Indonesia? So my question is, when I look at the board, the Partners in Prosperity, U.S. investment in Indonesia, can you give us advice? How can you, through the investment, can strengthen the capacity building within the government, especially in the local government? Of course, the discussion will be quite long regarding the three things that has a challenge for us, like regulation, human capital, and so forth. But as a regional planner, listening of all of the presentation, this comes to my mind. How can we smartly bring U.S. investment to my region, but by then also strengthen the capacity building within my government? Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. I think that's a very interesting question. In our report, we also put data that despite the impact, the positive impact of FDI, more than 50% of Indonesians see, FDI cautiously. Why is that? I think in part because of communication issue. And secondly, I think in part because as Indonesian, we fail to take advantage from the opportunity that is brought by FDI. For example, transfer of technology, human capital enhancement, and so on and so forth. This thing happened in China. This thing happened to some extent in Malaysia. This thing happened in Taiwan. But why does not happen in Indonesia? I don't think the company that invests in Indonesia and in those countries are different. They are similar, they have the same culture, they came from the same countries. So I think it is on our hand to ensure that FDI also benefiting us optimally. How to do that? We have to step up the ladder. We have to attract FDI who seek for efficiency. In the past, we have software industry, we have chip industry, we have computer design industry in the past. But where they are right now, they're moved to our neighbor, China, Malaysia, and to some extent Vietnam. Why is that? Because we cannot maintain this competitiveness, this efficiency. That's my very short answer. But of course, I'll be more than happy to have a very long discussion with you as well, a lot of things to share with you as well. Thank you.
Well, you know, today on the New York Stock Exchange, which is now the New York European Stock Exchange, of the 100 largest American companies on that exchange 100 years ago, there's only, I think, 8 left by name. They have merged, moved, changed as they've begun to operate at home and abroad. We say at the Chamber that 95% of the people that American companies want to sell something to don't live in the United States. They live all around the world. We now have a global market with global companies with different names than we had before. But all of those companies, all of those providers of investment and product are dependent on one thing. They're dependent on markets. They're dependent on people and markets who are going to contribute to their innovation, buy their products, demand their services, and participate in the community that they work and invest in. When you wake up 3, 4, 5 years ago, it's going to look different than it does today. Because not only are we making a lot of change, we're making it with great speed. New trade agreements, new investment relationships, new technologies, new ways of communicating. And so Indonesia is going not only to be different than it is today, but it is going to be part of all those companies, all those investments, all those technologies, and all of those trading agreements, because that's the way to the future. You will still have individual proud countries with indigenous folks, although more and more immigration who seek to make Indonesia their home and their place to raise their families and to have their lives, but they will do it in an integrated way with companies, products, services, solutions, and conflicts from all over the world.
Just a quick comment. I think it's an excellent question, by the way. I think there is an important aspect of capability buildings in building in a community that is of critical importance for companies to succeed. It's not about generosity, it's about having alliances and partnerships with the local companies or local individuals to actually succeed. So what we have seen today is that there is an extension of the supply chain, if you will. If you have an investment in any country, not just Indonesia, around that investment, new companies, new entrepreneurs are created because they will see the opportunity and they will develop the supply chain in that community. So that is already a level of capability buildings. If you then look at the level of knowledge transfer, technology transfer, training and development of individuals. Now, if you ask any bankers in Indonesia where they actually had the training, most of them are Citibank, HSBC. So that capability building is of critical importance to actually build a local society and contribute to the development of local entrepreneurs to actually be more successful in developing and growing the economy. Entrepreneurs are the drivers of the economic growth of any country, and that's important that Indonesia will focus on that as well. At the moment, if you look at the number of entrepreneurs, now the percentage of the population, I think is 0.4%, if I'm not mistaken, if I recollect correctly. In the US, for instance, it's about 4 or 5% of the population. In other parts of the world, it's much higher than 0.4%. So increasing the investment in developing entrepreneurial type of spirit in the country will go a long way to actually build communities and build capabilities within the communities.
That's a great answer.
Look, I want to stick with what Dr. Mahendra said, which was our military precision, and not go off the rails just because he's left the room. So I'm going to have to end the Q&A session right now. These gentlemen will be around after. We do have a lunch that's served, and I want to give the floor to Ambassador Dino Jalal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Andrew White and the entire panelists for the insightful discussion. Now I would like to invite Indonesian Ambassador to the United States, His Excellency Mr. Dino Patijalal, to give the closing remarks.
Thank you, everybody, and this is actually I learned quite a lot in the last 2 hours or so, and I want to congratulate BKPM, AmCham, Paramadina, US Aid, UGM, Ernst and Young, everybody. I don't know if I leave anyone out in preparing this excellent report. You know, to be honest, if me as ambassador, if I were to come here and say that U.S. investment in Indonesia is 65 billion instead of 7 billion, which is our official line, you know, I'd probably be put in mental institution. But if this is the result of an extensive and detailed and scientific, systematic study by a number of groups within Indonesia and outside Indonesia, then it makes a big difference. I think it's tremendous news that the number is a lot higher than 7 billion, and I think the other best news is that we can expect another 61 billion or so to come in the coming years. So I think that's very good news for us. Again, I want to congratulate all those who have prepared the report, and we look forward to working with you on that. I want to remind everybody, especially my Indonesian friends, that this 61 billion coming is not guaranteed, it's not preordained, it's a business plan, it's an intention, and it is very important for us first that we keep foreign investors, including American investors, happy, right? And when we keep them happy, what that means is that more will come. Because if more investors will come to Indonesia, what do they do? They ask investors who are already in the country, hey, are you happy or not? Right? And I want Indonesians to know that when we make investors happy, it doesn't mean selling out. You know, it is actually part of our national ethos. You know, Indonesian families have to be nice to foreign guests, to any guest that come to our house. And if we have a store, a shop, it is obligatory for us to treat our customers nice and to make them happy. Yeah? So it's not selling out. You know? We need and we're obliged to keep investors happy and remain in Indonesia so more investors can come in and be attracted to come to Indonesia. Now, I think we need to understand that two things. One is, what do Indonesians want from foreign investors? Right? Not just American investors, but foreign investors. And secondly, what do Americans want from Indonesia? American investors want from Indonesia. So let me just talk a little bit about that as a way of wrapping up. One is, what do Indonesians want from foreign investors, including American investors? One is this: we want them to appreciate our opportunities, right? Indonesians are very proud of the fact that we're now an emerging economy, $1 trillion economy, member of G20, large middle class, and so on and so on. You all know the numbers, and it is my job as Indonesian ambassador in the United States, and BKPM's job, just to spread this message out so people appreciate Indonesia's potentials. And I think all these investors know the score in terms of Indonesia's opportunities. Tom spoke very broadly about that. So that's done. Indonesians also want American investors to be long-term partners. We had an experience with the Krismon in 1997-98, and that left an impression on us. We want you to stay permanently for the long term, in good times and in bad times. Third, Indonesians want American investors, as Mahendra stated, to provide us with quality investment, provide us with quality jobs that bring more benefits to our people. Indonesians also want us to profit together. We know that you must profit as you invest in Indonesia, and we also want to profit together. You profit, we profit, and we all win-win together. Fifth, Indonesians want to know more about the profile of U.S. investors. How it is impacting them. There was a question that reflected that, and I think there's a lot of questions that are being asked, and perhaps this is just a communication issue, but we see today the gap between the impact and the deep presence of U.S. investments and the profile. So we need to make sure that we tell the stories as much as possible about how U.S. investors are impacting on Indonesian people. And next, Indonesians want U.S. investors to do it right, to invest in Indonesia in the right way. And again, this is something that, as Tom said earlier, American business have an advantage because they have very strict rules on anti-corruption and business ethics when they come invest in a different country. And I think this is a way that U.S. investors are quite different than other investors around the world. And lastly, Indonesians want a synergy between U.S. investments and our long-term plans. We have 3 plans, the master plan for economic development. We want Indonesia to be the top 7 largest world economy in the coming decades, and so on and so on. And we see great opportunity for synergy between U.S. investments and Indonesia's long-term economic progress. So that's what we want to see from the American investors. And I think the last thing we should do is take them for granted. I think this is a theme that was inherent in today's talks. We at the embassy did some study internally. We questioned some U.S. investors about their perceptions on Indonesia. We found also some very interesting findings. We found, for example, when we asked them, if you were not investing in Indonesia, you had a problem, where would you go next? 26% said China, 24% said Malaysia, and 21% said Vietnam. Right? So we got to be, we got to know that they do have options. Capital does go to the place which is attractive to them. Capital is a coward, and capital goes to places where they can grow the best. Right? So we got to not take them for granted. And it is also relevant in our survey that 29% of the business communities that we surveyed said Indonesia was a high-risk country for them. And 71% said Indonesia is a moderate risk for them. but the risk is seen as there. And the reason why they come is because they do see the potential for profit and they're willing to take that risk. So don't take them for granted, and we have to understand what I think the United States investors want from Indonesia, right? And again, I stand to be corrected on this. This is a personal, what do you call it, observation, based on my stay in the United States and being friends with Tom and Tammy and Edward and everybody. But several things for me. One is U.S. investors want to feel welcome and appreciated when they invest in Indonesia. I think one of our biggest challenge is that beyond this room, out there in the public and in the provinces, in the kabupatens, we need to begin to look at foreign investment, including U.S. investment, with less ideological eyes and more pragmatic attitude. We need to feel, the public needs to feel less defensive about foreign capital. This is the baggage from our ideological past. We need to feel less victim, and more beneficiaries. We need to feel less suspicious, and more opportunity driven. Let's feel that, hey, we've been had. There's a lot of that when you go to the provinces or the kabupaten. But I think on our part, the leaders and officials really need to educate the public that, look, the world has changed. Globalization has changed the game, and companies have changed. And how the impact on us have changed as well. What may be true 3 or 4 decades ago is not true today, and will change again tomorrow. So I think that's what we need to do in terms of our homework to make U.S. and foreign investors feel welcome. One of anecdotes that I want to share with you is there's a guy named Sehat Sutarja. Sehat Sutarja is the most celebrated Indonesian diaspora icon, a giant in Silicon Valley, an IT, his product is in your Blackberries and Samsung and everything. He controls 2/3 of semiconductors industry in the world. And because he's proud to be Indonesian, although he's a US citizen, once he wanted to come to Indonesia, right? And he says, I'm Indonesian, I want to put my money back in Indonesia. This is years back. And you know what happened? He wasn't welcome. He was just treated with suspicion. Well, why did you become an American citizen? What do you want back? And so on and so on. He wasn't given a feeling of being welcome and a given incentive. And what happens was there's a third country who said, hey, why don't you make your office